2. Council, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Alejandra Gutierrez. Councilmember Friedman.
Here.
Councilmember Snedden.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Harmon.
Here.
Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez.
Present.
Councilmember Jordan. And Mayor Rouse.
Here. Thank you. Before we get going to our regular agenda, I wanted to take a moment to recognize that Carmen Ramirez, who was the Board of Supervisors Chair for Ventura, was tragically killed and very recently. And there's a couple of council members up here that worked with her regularly and would like to maybe say a few words. Mr. Friedman?
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I just wanted to recognize Supervisor Ramirez and the lives that she's touched in so many different ways. And in particular, I had the opportunity over the last few years to work with her on environmental issues. She was a board member of Beacon, which we participated in as the city, and she was a member of the Coastal Commission Local Government Working Group that is comprised of city, county, and coastal commissioners that are trying to work through a lot of coastal planning issues. And she's very instrumental and very thoughtful voice in those discussions. And we just had that workshop that Friday morning in which we all participated with the Coastal Commission, and we're looking forward to working with it. And I just wanted to really express my condolences and our city's condolences to Ms. Ramirez and her family and the county of Ventura. It's a deep loss, and she touched so many people's lives. So I just wanted to take a moment and recognize her today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Ms. Carmen?
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. I'll be very brief. I just would add to those comments, and it's particularly apt today with Ms. Bufano and the whole team here, to just recognize the work that Supervisor Ramirez did on behalf of tenants, both in Ventura and across the state, both in her professional life and in her government posts. Really incredible and inspirational, and quite a woman who stood up for justice and for her residents. So it's a loss for the entire state of California. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shankman, if you continue to make noise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Okay, all right? Pay attention. All right, very good. Would you read the item, please? Next item, please, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 1, Employee Recognition Service Award Pins.
Ms. Bjork.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. This is the time of each month when we recognize people for their tenure and service to the city, and so I would like to read the names of the employees we're recognizing today. With 5 years of service, Lisa Newbert, Librarian 2 in the Library Department, Maud Merza, Supervising Librarian with the Library Department, Mo Graham, Administrative Assistant at the airport, Nathan Aldridge, Harbor Patrol Supervisor at the waterfront. With 10 years of experience of service, Corey Olison, Water Distribution Supervisor in the Public Works Department, Ramiro Arroyo, Parks Supervisor in the Parks and Recreation Department, Janet Prusinski, Administrative Supervisor at the Waterfront Department, and with 20 years of service, Andrew Rhodes, Water Treatment Superintendent in the Public Works Department. And here today, with 35 years of service, Andrea Bufano, Senior Rental Housing Mediation Specialist in the Community Development Department.
If you would join us up front, please. You are one popular person, obviously.
Thank you.
Andrea Bufano began her employment with the City of Santa Barbara in the Rental Housing Mediation Program in 1987. She was promoted from senior rental housing mediation specialist to a well-deserved and newly created position of rental housing mediation supervisor. The program's success reflects her knowledge, integrity, and skillful oversight of the program, serving as a model for other communities to emulate. Andrea has expanded the program over the years to include contracts with the City of Goleta, City of Carpinteria, and the County of Santa Barbara. She is a true asset to our city and local government partners. She played a critical role in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic and assisting the most vulnerable to avoid possible evictions. Her support, perseverance, and dedication aided our community in the most dire times. She quickly pivoted to respond to evolving and complicated federal, state, and local laws. Andrea is an expert in landlord-tenant rights and responsibilities, fair housing and mediation, earning the trust and respect of both landlords and tenants. She developed a comprehensive mediator training program for the staff, and City Council appointed 15 volunteer mediators, which has resulted in an overall program success rate of 100% for face-to-face and virtual mediations year over year. She has provided assistance to thousands of households and has been described as a magical mediator, an angel, invaluable, kind-hearted, and an absolute gift to the community. How many of us got that designation? Over the past 35 years, Andrea has received countless awards and commendations from the City of Santa Barbara and contracted municipalities, as well as various government agencies, media, and nonprofits. Her commendations include Mediation Fair Housing Proclamations, Santa Barbara Independence Local Hero Award, recognitions from the United States Congress, State of California Senate, and Assembly legislatures, and the prestigious Paul Harris Fellow for Living a Life Above Self. Andrea Bravano, on behalf of the City Council, the residents of Santa Barbara, and your fellow employees, it is my pleasure to honor you today for your exemplary 35-year career of the City of Santa Barbara and recognize your outstanding service to our community. And this commemorative pin as well goes with that. And that's not all we get to our contestants. This, even though we don't usually talk about the Board of Supervisors in this room, we have from the office of Greg Hart. The office of the 2nd District Supervisor recognizes the dedicated service of Andrea Bravano in the City of Santa Barbara for over 35 years. From Greg Hart.
Thank you.
There you go. Would you like to say it?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Randy Rouse and distinguished council members for this esteemed service award and for your leadership and continued support for the rental housing mediation program. In 1984, Chief Justice Warren Burger, 14th Justice of the United States Supreme Court, delivered a famous speech when in sum stated, "We ought to be healers, healers of conflicts." In 1975, a small group of landlord and tenant advocates got together to discuss the creation of a venue to resolve their conflicts out of court. As a result, in 1976, the Santa Barbara City Council established the Rental Housing Mediation Task Force, now renamed the Rental Housing Mediation Program, with a board of 15 City Council-appointed volunteer mediators. I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude, appreciation, and respect for our mediators, as they have helped to change the way our community resolves rental housing disputes. Many of them are here today. I'd like to acknowledge them. Bruce Wallenberg, David McDermott, Dan Hurlinger, Chair Beck, and I'm sure there's others that I'm just not seeing right this moment. Okay. These mediators volunteer their time, and they give so much of themselves. They leave their professions to come in and give back to the community, and that what makes them so very special. So I'd like to then go on and say, due to the program's success, other communities have reached out to our office to learn how they can implement similar procedures to assist their residents. It seems like just yesterday that I began my employment with the City of Santa Barbara. Because I love what I do, the past 35 years have gone by like a blink of an eye. I quickly learned that this job was about the betterment of our community by helping our citizens to resolve their disputes without litigation. I have a passion for helping people, and I found my true vocation and purpose in mediation and the service of others. There has not been one day that I have doubted this work was my calling. It is the best feeling to know that you can make a difference in someone's life. I am thankful for the city for entrusting me with this very important work. Mediation provides a fair and neutral forum for resolving disputes in which the parties maintain their dignity and devise their own terms of agreement. I have much admiration for the strength, courage, and heartfelt desire of our residents to resolve their differences amicably. The program directly benefits landlords, tenants, and the community, which results in a triple win and saves a lot of city resources. I would like to thank my mother, Eileen Bufano Baroni, excuse me, Mom. There she is. Who showed me by example that one person can make a difference in the life of another. Also to my husband, Jesse Martinez, attorney, for his encouragement and support of my work, and much appreciation to the rest of my family, friends, and colleagues. I'd like to share that my 98-year-old father-in-law is here today, and he taught me never give up. Jess Martinez in the corner. Success is felt most when there is a network of loving, caring people standing with you. Many are here today. I feel both honored and successful. I would like to close by leaving you with this thought. The world will be regenerated by the people who rise above passive ways and heroically seek, by whatever hardship, by whatever toil, the methods by which people can agree. Mary Parker Follet. Thank you, and thank you for 35 years of wonderful employment with the city of Santa Barbara. This has been a dream job for me. I never wanted to do anything else but this, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I thank all the people who came out here today in support of me, which my friend came in from Colorado with her husband, and my Uncle Howard, my sister Natalie, Julia, my Aunt Trish. Everybody's here today. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Well, we're not quite done with it yet. We have a few speaker slips who would like to speak to this item. Justin Dolan? Justin is not here anymore. Okay. Lisa Beck? You have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for just giving me a few minutes to speak. My name is Lisa Beck, and I have been a board member of the Rental Housing Mediation Board on and off since 2007. I remember in 2007 when I was just finishing up my dispute resolution training at Pepperdine, where I got my graduate degree. And I was really excited to try to exercise some of my new dispute resolution skills, and I was looking for opportunities to do that in the community. And I reached out to Andrea and said, do you have any openings available in your task force? It was a task force back then. And Andrea said, I'm so sorry, we're not recruiting right now, but I will get in touch with you when we're recruiting. And I thought, I am never going to hear from this lady again. I really thought that she was just blowing me off. But sure enough, when the recruitment came around, she reached out, and I did not realize that she was going to be developing a relationship with me that would last for the rest of my life and really set the tone for a lot that came after. But the kind of integrity that she showed in that moment is, in a small way, is the kind of integrity that she shows in everything that she does. Andrea is really someone who follows through on what she commits to, who is very passionate about this work, who has made it her life's calling. If you think about anyone doing 35 years of anything, I don't think there's too many of us in this room who can say that. But to her, this is more than just a job. This is her passion and her life's work. I have seen her persevere in situations where I thought they were lost causes. I thought we would never be able to reach a resolution. I have seen her empower so many citizens to be able to advocate for themselves, which is really the most important work that we as mediators do, is helping others to advocate for themselves. And I have just been inspired by watching her all this time. I really feel like if it hadn't been for the kind of person that she is and me observing her over these last 15 years, I would not be the kind of person I am right at this moment. So I want to thank Andrea for your incredible service and let you know how much it has meant to me to see what you do and to see how you do it and the integrity that you bring to this work. And just thank you for your long service to our community. So thank you, Andrea.
Okay, next speaker is Bruce Wellenberg.
I really have nothing to add to what Lisa said and agree with it all. I want to add to my congratulations to Andrea. I'm the old guy here. I've been on this task force or program for 22 years. And I learned from the really old guy, Silvio, you know. But now that he's gone, I'm sort of the old guy among the mediators. And so I want to applaud Andrea for two things: for her head, because you're such a good mediator and teacher, and you taught me so many things, and also for your heart, giving and giving, and not looking for praise at all, but being a real star for the city. And I want to thank you for supporting our mediation program. I don't know if it's the only one in the country, but it's certainly the best.
All right, thank you. And then is Carson Link, are you here for Andrea as well? Sir. All right. You have 3 minutes, please.
It's an easy public comment for you guys. She's taking all the heat. My name is Carson Link, and I am from the office of State Senator Monique Limon, and I am here to present Andrea with a certificate from our office for all of your service. I don't think I'll be able to say it as close to as well as they have, as people who have seen you in the trenches and actually working. And I don't even know if we've met, but I've heard your name a million times just in the community because people respect you. I don't know if you can tell. Half of the room is only here for you. And so, I mean, it is pretty obvious the love that is here for the work that you've done and for you personally. So I wanted to give this to you. And congratulations and thank you so much for everything you've done. Thank you.
And then the final speak for Andrea will be Alex Unterline, if that's how I pronounce your last name.
I'm from Legal Aid, and Andrea invited me last night, and I had no idea it had been 35 years. And I'll share a story of when I moved to Santa Barbara. I was looking to work in housing law, and I doubt Andrea remembers this because it seems like this has happened so many times. I went to Legal Aid, I went to some other attorneys in town, and people told me, go talk to Andrea. And she was, in the first 2 months I was there, the only person who would sit down and meet with me. And in the last 6 years, I have seen that that is the case if it's 10 o'clock at night, if it's something that's completely broken in a case or completely broken in somebody's heart with their housing. She truly cares, and I share my personal, and I'm sure everyone at Legal Aid's congratulations and love for Andrea's work.
And we have a couple of virtual joiners as well. Rob Fredericks from the Housing Authority. Rob?
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can.
Great, thank you, Mayor Rouse and council members. I too am here today to celebrate Andrea Bufano's great work and how she has really made the rental housing mediation program what it is. And I'm reminded of a quote from one of my friends in the affordable housing industry that goes something like this. Serving others doesn't mean folks will love or appreciate you. Heck, they may not even like you. Service means that regardless of one's demeanor, be it congeniality,
frustration, or anger. We serve them with dignity, warmth, and grace. And that quote reminds me of Andrea and how she works with the rental housing mediation program. And throughout the years, the Housing Authority has been blessed to be able to work with Andrea and the landlord community to create housing stability, to keep people stably housed in their homes where before they may have faced eviction. So I thank the rental housing mediation program and their advocates and Andrea for all of her wonderful work through the years. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Michelle Roberson? Michelle, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Thank you so much, Mayor Rouse and council members. I currently have the great honor of being the vice chair of the Rental Housing Mediation Board. And as board members, we're tasked with mediating disputes. And there's 14 of us, and we continue to receive training and we're ready to serve. But the reality is that Ms. Andrea Buffano, she's the heart and soul of so many of the community members for our city of Santa Barbara. She's helped countless individuals during her 35 years in the city, both directly and indirectly. She constantly talks about how us board members help her, but she is really the one that helps us. She trains us, she's patient, she's enthusiastic, and her passion is truly the leadership that we all find contagious and truly wanting to follow her lead and being more like her. And her work doesn't begin on Monday at 8:30 or end at 5:30. She's been on calls resolving matters long after dark, and she quietly serves with one goal in mind, and that's to serve the public. It's really that simple. She comes to the city to serve in any way possible, and we're so fortunate to have her serving our community because she truly is one of a kind. She accomplishes so many wins each and every day with so many hundreds of calls she fields each week with very little fanfare when we compare it to how much she actually accomplishes. While she is being recognized today for her service, I don't think many of us know how above and beyond she goes for the people in our community. I've received calls from her way past 6 o'clock, and she'll even stay another hour to draft agreements and drive over to people's homes to be sure they understand the agreements and know that their voice was heard. And she does a lot of outreach to educate our community. And one of my favorites is a time that she was preparing a PowerPoint presentation for Santa Barbara Housing Day. And she was sending it to me because it was going to be on my laptop that I was bringing. And she went over and over and sent me about 4 or 5 iterations over the night because she was just tweaking it and tweaking it. The next day, she went through the entire presentation perfectly, verbatim, her entire presentation. And when it was done and we were downloading as to how it went, I said, oh my gosh, it went really well. It was great. And she's like, oh, I'm so glad I could not see a word on your laptop. So she had memorized every single slide. And that is just Andrea, so dedicated and knows everything beginning to end. And I am so happy that she's being recognized today for her 35 years, but I hope that we all recognize her each and every day because she truly is a gem. And I want to thank you personally, Andrea, for everything and just being such a leader and have such a kind heart because you also make me want to be a better person. So thank you.
Thank you. Okey doke, so much for the fun stuff. Madam Administrator, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Mayor Rouse.
Okay, we will then go to public comment. We have 3 minutes at the podium per speaker. The first public speaker will be Scott Wentz. Mr. Wentz.
Mayor Rouse, members of the council, Scott Wentz representing Kaiser Basic. Before the pandemic was over we said that the closing of State Street would create a problem on the side streets. And working in a building at the 0100 block of East Carrillo Street, I saw it on a daily basis, building and building and building. We just had an email from a CAB member, which I've sent to each one of you, that stated, you know, we were over at the Libero and we tried to get out after the event was over with. It took us almost 10 to 15 minutes to get out. And I went, okay, this proves our point. And then after I sent that email out to our general population, had an email from one of our Democrats, yes, Montecito residents, who said, we were at the same event at Libero and we experienced the same thing. And they said, it's a, I can't say that. It's a FUBAR, okay? And that something has to be done about this. CAB's position has always been that State Street is a absolute necessary outlet for the transportation policies and circulation in downtown Santa Barbara. As your own staff has stated, before the street was shut down, it carried 20,000 car trips a day. And now all that's over on Anacapa and Carrillo Street and so forth. You have a problem, it's going to get worse instead of better. The parking garages can't handle the flow. And having personally experienced it as an employee downtown, something has to be done, and my suggestion is, and CAB's suggestion is, that you open State Street back up. Thank you.
All right, next speaker is Ethan Schenkman.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for this opportunity to speak with you today. I just need to, I'm going to read something here as quickly as possible, and hopefully we'll get the gist. It's not the same kind of content I've given you before, but it does address corporate attire for women in the workplace. Okay. Lead and other trace metals may be found in many lipsticks. These occur naturally and can accidentally contaminate other ingredients during production. As contaminants are not added intentionally, they will not be listed as ingredients. In 2007, a study by the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics released a report called, quote, A Poison Kiss, that tested 33 popular brands of lipstick for lead content. The study found that 61% of lipsticks contained lead with levels up to 0.65 parts per million ppm. The study raised public awareness of the issue, putting pressure on the FDA to conduct further studies using a specialized testing method. In 2009, the FDA released a follow-up study to the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics report, which found lead was present in all 20 samples tested. The lead levels ranged from 0.09 to 3.06 ppm, with the highest levels found in lipsticks made by CoverGirl, L'Oreal, and Revlon. In 2011, the FDA conducted an expanded survey on this previous study, which broadened the testing to 400 lipsticks and were available on the U.S. market at the time. The study was performed by Frontier Global Sciences, incorporated using same testing method in 2009. The study found that an average of 1.11 ppm compared to the 1.07 ppm average in the 2009 study, while the highest amount of 7.19 ppm in Maybelline's Color Sensational 125 Pink Petal. This was more than twice the highest amount of lead found in 2009 study. Trace amounts of lead can contaminate raw ingredients, specifically mineral-based additives, as the element occurs naturally in soil, water, and air. The Campaign for Safe Cosmetics made a list of chemicals for concern which can contain toxic chemicals such as lead, whilst only trace amounts of lead are ingested from lipstick. Lead accumulates in the body over time, which can eventually lead to lead poisoning. It's also passed in utero and doesn't exit the system, and imported from foreign markets. The most common use of lipsticks are teens and adult women, and a study performed by the University of California, Berkeley, found that women applied lipstick anywhere from 2 to 14 times a day. This translates to up to 87 milligrams of product ingestion per day. Lead ingestion particularly concerning for pregnant women because lead can enter in the fetus from the mother. The FDA is a regulating body of cosmetic safety under the US FD&C Act. Cosmetics regulated by the FDA do not need to be approved for pre-market sale, but pre-market approval is required for any color additives used in lipsticks.
Your time is up, Mr. Schenkman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cecilia Fablich. If I got that name right.
Close. It's kind of like the word fabulous, but with an ICH at the end.
And you can pull that microphone right down too, if you like.
It's not
3
for
minutes, please.
ordinary height people. You know, I moved to Santa Barbara in January, and I live near Santa Barbara Airport, and there wasn't nearly as much noise at that time until after the Memorial Day holiday, and then there was an increase in traffic. I'm losing a lot of sleep because of the red eye that's leaving in the area of midnight, and more flights, 3 more flights at 5 a.m., starting at 5:15 until 6 a.m. A person can't sleep through the night with 5.5 hours sleep. It's impossible. And so I went on to Nextdoor and I asked if there was a group that I could join, and I couldn't find a group. So we have established a group. It's called Clean and Quiet SBA. I have a petition online, but I have a written petition that has over 100 signatures, and I will send it to anyone that is interested. We have contacted an environmental specialist who is from UCSB, and we find a sticky substance on our cars, and she said it is likely from jet fuel hydrocarbons that, you know, just flow in the air. So Santa Barbara Airport is expanding. You're spending millions of dollars for expansion, but it's more like a youngster learning to walk. They're going forward and not paying attention to what the effect is going to be. If indeed they increase air traffic 79%, this is what some people say. I'm not sure of the statistics. Where are we going to be? I have a lot of noise coming through, and it's all day long. But the one that I particularly resent is the one that is at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the next 2 flights after that. An environmental impact report was done for SBA in 2017. You got federal funds to do that, but you haven't completed your expansion. We are asking that a new report be done, or at least an update of that. We're asking for an independent noise study. We're asking for stakeholders to be part of the Airport Commission. Is this too much to ask? Do I hear from anybody? Can I hear a response?
Ma'am, we are ready to have, we're going to have an airport update in.
Well, you canceled the meeting. I asked for noise abatement to be
I'm
on
just
the
saying, ma'am,
August agenda.
we can get you more updated information when we have our airport director is coming on, and then
August 30th.
on August 30th in these chambers. So if they're going to give a complete update for everything that's going on at the airport, be a good time to find out what.
Well, may I be here?
You may be here. It's August 30th, same time.
Oh, it will be at a meeting.
This will be an open meeting, public meeting.
Oh,
right.
that's great, because they canceled this one.
All right.
They canceled tomorrow's.
Okay, well, but
All
they'll-
right.
he'll be here on the 30th, so.
Okay,
Please
thank
check
you.
with us. All right, thank you very much. Madeline Monchump.
I'm Madeline Monchap. I live on Ward Drive in Goleta, next to the Santa Barbara Airport, and I basically have the same complaint. As you're aware, there are flights out of the Santa Barbara Airport after midnight, and then a flight 5:20 in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. I'm asking you to think about how well you could do your job on 5 hours of sleep, or even 6 hours. I'm asking you to think about how well your children or grandchildren could thrive on 6 hours of sleep. Then think about the thousands of residents of Santa Barbara and Goleta whose sleep is impacted by flights. Think about a late-night flight out of Santa Barbara Airport serving 200 travelers on that flight, and then the thousands of residents whose sleep is impacted by that. We need to reconsider airport expansion. We need to reconsider hours of operations at the Santa Barbara Airport. We need to consider health and safety of our local community. Santa Barbara Airport is an asset in our community, but it's becoming a liability in regard to community health and safety. I feel we cannot accommodate any additional expansion of flights coming into or going out of the Santa Barbara Airport. We have to start thinking of our communities, not just the profit of another airliner coming into the airport. Again, community. You need to support your community. Thank you, and thank you for all the work you do.
Thank you. All right, that concludes public comment. Oh, wait, we have one speaker online, I'm sorry.
Yes, we have one speaker. Oh, they actually lowered their hand. Oh, it's raised again. Michael Glick, you are unmuted and can go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes.
Great. I'm also speaking to request that the Santa Barbara City Council and the Airport Commission mitigate the noise, pollution, and safety issues relative to current airport use and proposed expansion, especially relative to the surrounding neighborhoods in Goleta. I'll start with just a short anecdote. Last Sunday, we had a birthday party for my wife, and the in-laws were here, and the frequency of flights, you know, it was a warm, sunny day. We had the doors and the windows open to enjoy the sea breeze, and the frequency of flights during the day made it difficult to hold a conversation. But before I really get into the noise issue, I want to address a comment that a lot of people make that if you chose to live next to an airport, then, you know, essentially just get over it. You know, you chose to live there. Well, first of all, my house is over 2 miles from the airport, so we didn't choose to live right next to the airport. But also, when we did choose to live here, it was in the mid-'80s. And in the mid-'80s, the Santa Barbara Airport was actually a municipal airport. The frequency of flights was much less. They didn't have these late night and early morning flights. In fact, there's no flights at all, no regularly scheduled flights between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. But more to the point, similar to how they still do it over Hope Ranch, over Elwood, where I am, the recommended flight path banked out over the ocean. And for some reason, in the noise mitigation plan for Santa Barbara Airport, they've deleted that part of it. Now the flights just go straight out, low and loud, straight out over the dense residential area. They need to bank out over the bluffs like they used to when we bought the place. The second myth I want to debunk is dual pane windows. People always like to throw that out like that's some panacea. Well, around here, we don't have air conditioning because we live next to the beach and we're looking to mitigate the noise problem. The flight paths directly over the residential areas create a real problem for us. But there are things that you can do.
We need to wrap up, please, or here's your time limit, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. There's a lot you can do. You just need to have the will to do it.
All right, very good. Thank you. Anybody else, Mr. Clerk?
There are no more virtual speakers.
All right, very good. That concludes public comment. We will go to the consent calendar. We have some items to read.
I do. Item 3, Amendment 1 of License Agreement with Santa Barbara Youth Sailing Foundation to increase premises and change the monthly license rate, ordinance introduction, and contract. That council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving and authorizing the Waterfront Director to execute Amendment 1 to Lease Agreement Number 26738 with Santa Barbara Youth Sailing Foundation, increasing the premises, changing the monthly license rate, and including a utility fee, commencing upon the effective date of the enabling ordinance. And item 4, affordability covenant modification for the Lighthouse Apartments property located at 1502-1522 San Pasqual, ordinance introduction and contract. That council introduce and subsequently adopt by reading of title only an ordinance of the Council of the City of Santa Barbara approving a first amendment to restated affordability control covenant imposed on real property with the Turner Foundation since 1958 for property located at 1502-1522 San Pasqual Street, and authorizing the Community Development Director to execute such amendment. And those are all the items I have to read.
Very good. Does anybody need to pull an item? I will entertain a motion for the consent calendar.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Moved by Friedman. Second by Harmon. Do a roll call vote, please, Mr. Clerk.
Yes, this is a motion by Councilmember Friedman, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Harmon to move the consent calendar forward. Councilmember Alejandra Gutierrez.
Yes.
Councilmember Friedman.
Yes.
Councilmember Snedden.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Harmon.
Yes.
Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez.
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan. And Mayor Rouse.
Aye. All right, very good. That concludes the consent calendar. We'll move on to our regular agenda. Would you read the first item, please?
Yes, this is item 7, Highway 101 Carpinteria to Santa Barbara and Parallel Projects Update.
Okay, Mr. Bailey.
Mayor Rouse, Council, good afternoon. My name's Derek Bailey. I'm the Principal Transportation Engineer with the city's Public Works Department. I'm pleased to introduce Margie Kern from the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments. Ms. Kern and staff members from SBCAG and Caltrans will be providing you with a project update for the Highway 101 project, Carpinteria to Santa Barbara. They're also going to be providing, as part of their presentation, some high-level information on some of the improvements that are going to be happening on local Santa Barbara city streets. We do have some extra information and graphics available for you past the end of the slideshow if the council wants some more information on that. And
Very
with that,
good.
I'd be happy to turn it over to Ms. Kern.
Great. Thank you so much, Derek. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, Mayor and council members. Thank you so much for having us finally in person. It's been a while. It's been a few years, I think, since I've been here. I'm, again, Margie Kern. I'm the Executive Director of Santa Barbara County Association of Governments and have been for almost or over 5 years now, and I'm very honored to be the Executive Director of such a productive organization. I'm joined today by a few of my colleagues with the Highway 101 to Santa Barbara project team. We have Joe Irwin, the Corridor Manager from Caltrans District 5, Fred Luna, the Director of Project Delivery and Construction from SBCAG, Lauren Bianchi-Clement, the Government Affairs and Public Information Manager at SBCAG. So the team is proud of our history of working together collaboratively with the City of Santa Barbara. We look forward to continuing that partnership. As you can see from this slide, today we'll cover an overview of the Highway 101 multimodal corridor project, what it means for the City of Santa Barbara, and hopefully answer any questions that you may have. So first, let's look back to how we got here. SBCAG and our partnering agencies like the City of Santa Barbara have a long history with the Highway 101 multimodal corridor project. The problem, it started with the community coming together to solve a problem, the problem of increased commuter traffic between Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. There was 16 miles of bottleneck between Muscle Shoals and Ventura County to Santa Barbara, where Highway 101 went from 3 lanes to 2 lanes and back to 3 lanes, creating that bottleneck. The congestion created a problem not only for the commuter's quality of life, but also for freight and goods movement coming to our corridor, through our corridor, the environment with the greenhouse gas emissions, the business community, and tourism, just to name a few. Therefore, to solve any problem, you have to start with a plan and a strategy. In 2006, SBCAG completed an analysis of the corridor and adopted the 1-in-1 in motion as our strategy for reducing the peak hour congestion between Ventura and Santa Barbara County. Because of community involvement, Santa Barbara County was among one of the first regions to look at solving traffic congestion through a multimodal lens, beginning being a community where people have multiple choices of travel, either bus, train, carpooling, vanpooling, bicycling, and e-bikes, choices other than one person, one car. This strategy became the lane and the train solution, which formed the foundation of our efforts since then and led to the passage of Measure A in 2008 with over 79% of voter approval countywide. Voters supported allocating $140 million in matching Measure A funding to relieve traffic congestion in the South Coast and improve safety, ultimately to help make the lane and the train solution a reality. Now that I've shared a little bit about why we're here, let's talk about how far we've come since 2006. As you can see on this map, when we talk about the 16-mile gap between Ventura and Santa Barbara, we're talking about the community's vision in the corridor. In order to plan, fund, and construct the project, it was organized in 4 separate phases. The great news is that we are done with phases 3 of the 4 phases of the Highway 101 project. Phase 1, in the Milpas Hot Springs up at the top, was completed in 2012. Phase 2, Ventura to Carpinteria, was completed in 2015. And Phase 3, the Linden Casitas Pass project in Carpinteria, was just completed in 2020. And what you're seeing under construction now is Phase 4, the Carpinteria to Santa Barbara phase. Phase 4 has almost 11 miles and it's being constructed in 5 separate segments. It's a little confusing with phases and segments, but we had to break it down into fundable components so we could get this project moving. So the 5 segments you will hear as 4A, B, C, D, and E. The first 3 of those segments through Summerlin are fully funded with Measure A and state SB1 funding. We are proud to recently celebrate the opening of the carpool lanes in Carpinteria, and it signified the first completed segment in Phase 4. Additional work in Padaro and Summerlin will be completed in the next couple of years, 2023 and 2024 timeframe. We are working to fully fund the project through Montecito and Santa Barbara in this upcoming state cycle, which we'll be applying for this fall. In addition to the carpool lane through the community, the leadership of SBCAG and several other projects were identified to enhance safety and operations, such as auxiliary lanes, intersection improvements, and roundabouts at key locations. We call these parallel projects, and Fred will highlight a couple of those of interest to Santa Barbara in a moment. Overall, the parallel projects include the bicycle pedestrian facilities, providing key gap closures in the California Coastal Trail, improving rail and transit services, including buying electric buses and other capital improvements throughout the corridor, improving climate resiliency by upgrading the pavement and bridge infrastructure and improving water flow throughout the corridor. So I know I've covered a lot of history in this brief, limited time that I've had with you, but now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of our presentation. We're going to get to the interesting part about what this means for City of Santa Barbara. The rest of our presentation will focus on the Highway 101 Santa Barbara Project Segment 4E and the various parallel projects. With that, I'll turn it over to Joe Irwin from Caltrans District 5 to share a little bit about how we have and will continue to work together. So Joe?
All right, thank you, Margie, and thank you for having us to be able to present and share the information. I'm Joe Irwin, Corridor Manager with Caltrans District 5. The big picture here is that, the partnership that the city and the project team and Caltrans that we all have together, it's critical for not just the project success, but the overall corridor success, stretching all across the city limits. While we're focusing today on the 101 project, I'm also looking at the broader relationship that we have as an agency to ensure that issues, when they come up, people don't just see them as, oh, that's a Caltrans issue or that's a city issue. They see that as an issue, and we are all in this together in terms of the relationship that we have fostered so far, and we're going to continue to work on to address those needs and be held accountable. And so We have reflected that with our relationship through design review teams, working with the Public Works Department on those parallel projects that are in the city limits or nearby the city limits. And it's going to carry on that relationship through the coastal development permit process, which is what we're about to be embarking on soon. Then from the Caltrans perspective, as the owner and operator, we're constantly monitoring the freeway and the highway system in this area to look for issues. But one thing I want to be perfectly clear on is that we look at this from a Caltrans perspective. And so we lean heavily on that relationship with our local partners, with the city of Santa Barbara, to see issues from your perspective. And we won't always see what that is, but if you can bring it to our attention, then that helps us make sure that we're addressing the needs that you have identified as a local community. So it's important that we, go both ways on that relationship and communicate together and share when we see issues. All right, and while the 101 project is a regional project in nature, the project team is striving for the goal of it being a community-driven approach, or at least using a community-driven approach to develop the project. And so to do this, we use a set of guiding principles. And to go down this list, the design, we try to reflect local values with community input and prioritize an ongoing stakeholder and public input process. And that's been realized in the design review teams that we've embarked on and the community outreach that we've done as a team. Furthermore, we have other guiding principles like maintaining and preserving coastal views, minimizing the impacts of historic and cultural resources, and minimizing the take of private property. We want to stay within the right-of-way of 101. We aren't looking to expand this into a wide freeway going through Santa Barbara. We want to maintain and keep those existing right-of-ways as much as possible. And then finally, maintaining financial viability and meeting current standards, and then addressing public and worker safety. I talked about this being a regional project. So we have statewide and federal standards that we have to meet, right? And so we address those, and by addressing those, we bring something that was a first-generation freeway in the beginning of the freeway expansion era and bring it up to a more modern, safer design standard, which is more consistent with what drivers are seeing driving up from Los Angeles all the way up through San Francisco. And with that, I can hand it off.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, Mayor Rouse and members of the council. Fred Luna here with SBCAG. I'm the Director of Project Delivery and Construction. So I have the nice job of showing you some pictures and some renderings of the improvements that we are, as the 101 team, going to deliver in the city of Santa Barbara, and talk about also, as Ms. Kern had indicated, some of the parallel projects, which are key local projects to the overall package of improvements that we're going to be delivering in this corridor. And we want to tell you the story of how far and how successful we have been to get this project to construction ready, and the progress that we've made on both the 101 improvements, but also those key parallel projects. So if you can go to the next slide. Oh, I'm sorry, you're already there. Okay, that was my intro. Okay, so we have this slide. I'm going to do some orientation. What you're seeing here is a plan view from our, what we call our concept level user-friendly plans that we've submitted to the city for our coastal permit application. But essentially, it divides the Santa Barbara segment into two areas. So the top part of the map is on the northern part of the city limits. And essentially the 4E, or Santa Barbara segment that we're calling it, starts at Sycamore Creek on the north and then extends down to Olive Mill. So that's essentially the city limit for the city of Santa Barbara and the county of Santa Barbara. So on the top map there, you're primarily seeing the components related to the Cabrillo interchange, and I have a focused map on the next slide to get into some of those details. But I wanted to use this particular map to go over the entirety of the proposed components and improvements that will be implemented in the corridor. So essentially, the project consists of the reconstruction of the Cabrillo interchange. You can see that on the top map. Though both the northbound and southbound lanes will currently move towards the center. There's kind of an open median now there where there's left-hand ramps. So those left-hand ramps will be removed and made into more traditional alignment. placed on the right side. And then, most importantly, we will be restoring the Cabrillo southbound on-ramp to Highway 101 that was removed in Phase 1 about 10 years ago, so that will be restored. And I know that's been much desired by the community, the city of Santa Barbara specifically. So that is an important component of the project. Furthermore, there's a lot of ramp improvements, thanks to Caltrans, who's contributing funding for shop improvements, which are coming from their kind of maintenance and rehabilitation. We're making improvements to not just the interchange ramps, but the Hermosillo off-ramp and the Olive Mill southbound off-ramp as well. And so there's quite a bit of work that needs to get done. There are also sound walls proposed for the project. Now, these have gone through a process with the project team these are being offered as sound abatement, but not mitigation. And so they still need local approval at the local level. So going through the coastal permitting process, if the city, through its own process, agrees that those will stay in the project description, they will be implemented as part of the project. Next slide. So this is our timeline for when we would plan on delivering and showing the progress that the team has been been made to date. Overall, the message we want to share with the council today is that we've taken on a lot of work using SBCAG Measure A dollars to advance this project to be construction ready for funding opportunities that are coming up. And that could be as early as starting construction next year. We have a number of funding opportunities that are due this fall, and I'll get into that in just a second. As far as on this slide here, if you hit enter, or you already did, so we're right here in this process. So we're at about 95% design. So we've used our 65% design plans. We've already submitted once to the city as part of our initial coastal permit application submittal. That was sometime last year. We plan on resubmitting using updated information. We've done a lot of work with city staff in collaboration to go through an extensive design review team, and so we're going to show you some of the work products that came out of that effort to look at design elements. Over a period of 6 months, there was about 15 meetings where we sat down with appointed members from the city and city staff to go through various design elements to come up with what we think are, elements of the city that fit within the community values like Joe is indicating. Next slide. Okay, so this is a focused picture of the Cabrillo interchange. And so you can see there in the middle, the northbound and southbound freeway bridges that are going over Cabrillo Boulevard. So those will be both widened for the additional freeway lanes, but also lengthened to accommodate Cabrillo Boulevard and the vision that the city has, both north on the inland side and the south side, connecting to some of the parallel projects that we will be talking about, to have those improvements, to have ample sidewalks, multi-purpose paths, additional lanes to accommodate the traffic operations as well. One of the signature components is you see that teardrop roundabout there. That was integrated, and we worked closely with Mr. Bailey to get that implemented and evaluated, and it's at the intersection of the northbound ramps and then Cabrillo Boulevard. So, and then you can see the planting opportunities that we have around the interchange. Of course, we have to design that to look for, make sure that sight lines are maintained and visibility through the different intersections. There are some narrow strip planters you see at the bottom to shield that, but I think you'll get a sense of the planting when we show the renderings on how that vision will look along the retaining walls that will be built to support both the freeway lanes, but adjacent to the railroad tracks. That is a very confined location, but I think you'll see that the design team has come up with an elegant solution in that area. Next slide. So here are some of the renderings here. So what you're seeing here is Cabrillo Boulevard, southbound on and off ramp. So again, these are this is the new right-hand off ramp at Cabrillo Boulevard. That would have been a left-hand on-ramp currently, and then the new southbound on-ramp that doesn't exist right now that I said would be replaced. And so on the left there, you're seeing the, is that's southbound? Yeah, that's a southbound on-ramp, yeah. So that's in between, you can see the railroad on the right and then the freeway on the left there on that left picture. So you can see how tightly that's placed in there, and there's a retaining wall that both supports the railroad and then a retaining wall that supports the freeway lanes. And then there are planting opportunities on either side there. So that intersection will be signalized. There just wasn't enough room. We did an analysis to look at roundabouts at that area. There just wasn't enough room to accommodate the necessary area to look at a roundabout in that area. But that will be signalized, and the analysis was done to coordinate the roundabout movements with the signal. On the right, okay, then you see the off-ramp. So that's, you're looking back up the ramp towards Sycamore Creek, let's just say, towards the northern limit of the project. So you're looking back in that direction. So on the right, you see the southbound lanes of 101, again, a retaining wall there. And then on the left there, another retaining wall to support the railroad tracks. And then planting opportunities there, vines on the walls to soften that look, and then other planting ground cover adjacent to the lanes to maintain those sight lines and maintenance opportunities. Next slide. Okay, so now we're on the other side. So if you can imagine yourself now, you're looking at the interchange from the Cabrillo Boulevard if you're come from Hot Springs through the Hot Springs roundabout, and now you're traveling like to go to the freeway northbound. So on the left there, you can see you're further up, and this is the new connection. You're looking into that teardrop roundabout that I mentioned earlier. And then on the right, you'll see a new sidewalk path along a retaining wall that supports Old Coast Highway. And then continuing on, you'll see the bridge in the background. And then the new, on the left there, you'll see the new Cabrillo northbound off-ramp that connects into that teardrop roundabout intersection. And then on the right side is a photo as you're getting closer. Essentially, if you're put inside the median of that roundabout and you're looking at the bridge. And so you can see the design of the bridge. It was chosen to mimic other designs already in Santa Barbara through the design review team process with those arches and the timber railing that was implemented across the bridge to give each of those bridges that signature look and distinct element. So. And then you can see kind of that arch also that goes through the undercrossing there. And then the ample width on either side for those pedestrian and multi-purpose paths. Next slide. Okay, so we want to talk about the next steps for getting this funded. And so we're in the process, as I mentioned before, of completing the design with local funds that SBCAG has put forth through Measure A. So SBCAG is actually leading the design effort as the implementing agency. We've hired a consultant team that's worked in other parts of the corridor. And then ultimately, we'll be handing that project off to Caltrans, who will be constructing the project. So we're getting the project ready for construction, and there's a number of funding opportunities that are available to SBCAG and Caltrans. The most near-term one with, so we submitted a big federal application a few months back, and we hope to hear, it's called through the Mega Infra Rural Program, hear back before the calendar year. That was essentially applying for all the remaining work that's left in the corridor. It was a tremendous opportunity that we had to submit for the entirety of the work, and so we hope to hear back. But we don't just focus in one area, we go for every opportunity that's available to us. So there's a number of state opportunities and programs that were implemented through Senate Bill 1 a number of years ago. We were successful to fund the first 3 segments that Margie was talking about through Senate Bill 1 and a number of programs, and so we're continuing to do that using a similar strategy, building on our multimodal approach that's been part of our DNA since 101 in Motion was implemented back in 2006. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, but specifically those are the main upcoming funding opportunities. The applications are due later this calendar year, and then we would expect to hear back by May of next year, and awards could be made as early as June of next year by the California Transportation Commission, which is the statewide body that awards those types of funding opportunities. And I think Lauren's going to talk a little bit about that later. Next slide. So what's going to be in our funding application? So this is just a couple of slides or photos that show how diverse a package we've created working with Caltrans and the city to come up with projects and programs that really appeal to the goals that are in the Senate Bill 1 program. On the left there, it's just a picture of our highway construction. Of course, that's kind of the linchpin component of our funding applications to complete both the 4E segment, the Santa Barbara segment, and some remaining work in the Montecito area. And then as you move over to the right, I'm going to go in clockwise direction. You can see a picture right in the middle on the top of the Cabrillo undercrossing. So that is a project that SBK, Caltrans, and the city have been working on for years. I personally had worked on that a number of years ago, working with the railroad, and so there's still working through getting approval of that project and then making that available for those funding opportunities. And so we've applied for that project just recently, and we'll continue to both apply for it individually and part of the overall package. So right now it's a key component of our overall funding package. On the right there, you see that's really a picture that's in order to articulate a project that we recently collaborated with the city on, is to make some improvements on the Lower East Side, kind of some safety improvements near schools, sidewalk extensions. I think Mr. Bailey probably could speak to that a little bit more. Safety improvements, some lighting. I think that in maybe even a roundabout at mini roundabout at Salinas and Old Coast Highway, just to kind of improve that whole area. There's a number of improvements that we will include in our funding application. And then if you move over on the bottom right there, contactless card readers, implementing innovations and new technology, that is really kind of one of the rubrics that you like to, some of these funding applications like to see. How are you being innovative in the corridor? And so, and really helping the transit operations for that. And then in the middle there, we have another component to work with MTD to purchase some electric buses for the corridor. And then lastly, on the left, we have a separate planning study, and then we're looking to implement zero-emission vehicle chargers throughout the corridor to just really make that range anxiety less for people that are either commuting through the corridor or maybe even just those long-range trips, and they can just stop. And we'll look at it. We had a planning meeting this morning just looking at a variety of both fast chargers and then more longer chargers for people that maybe make a stop and have more time to charge. So having that type of diversity in the charging. Next slide. So I'm going to continue my presentation to talk about parallel projects. And so on this slide, you'll see a mixture of the different parallel projects, some of which we've just classified them as parallel projects, but some of them were specifically mitigation improvements from the 2017 EIR that Caltrans prepared, and others are just projects that help round out the overall corridor improvements that are being implemented. And so the top two are the Olive Mill and Milpas Roundabout, and then you can see down below, the ones that have the green symbol, those are projects that are within the near term. Within a year, you should be seeing some construction going on, and we have some more imminent news about the Olive Mill Roundabout coming up. And so the Olive Mill Roundabout, the Milpas Roundabout, and that Phase 1 Los Patos Cabrillo Roundabout were all advanced because they were traffic mitigation projects, and so it was important to the 101 team to get those implemented early and have those in place before construction started on the freeway. They would improve operations, and so SBCAG used some of its regional dollars to advance those projects. And so working with the city on at least on all three of those projects, but specifically the Milpas and the Los Patos Cabrillo will be implemented by the city staff, and then the Olive Mill will be implemented by SBCAG and Caltrans in conjunction with the 101 improvements. And then I mentioned the other projects where we have the dollar sign. Those are the ones that are included in our funding application. So I mentioned those previously, the Lower East Side improvements, the UP bridge replacements at Cabrillo and Los Patos, and I think that's it. Next slide. Okay, so I have some renderings here. So here's the Los Patos Cabrillo roundabout. So this was essentially when it came to this, the city decision-making process, there was a single project that was included both the roundabout and the railroad improvements. And we were getting a little bogged down with the railroad stuff, but we thought how important it was to get this roundabout in place. And so we worked with the city to figure out a strategy to advance the roundabout component, fund it locally, and get that in place before the 101 improvements. And so that's moving forward as phase one. And then phase two will continue to be an important part of our funding applications. And then you can see the rendering there that shows the vision. I think the idea is that the city would plan to advertise that for construction within the next couple months, and then they could start construction as early 2023. Next slide. And then the Olive Mill roundabout. This additionally was a traffic mitigation project that was identified in the 2017 EIR. Again, everyone's very familiar with the need to make improvements at this location. The roundabout was designed as identified as the solution the only solution really that could work at that location. And so from an operations standpoint, we did a further study. I know there was a number of requests to get this done early and before construction. And then SBK and Caltrans worked on the traffic study to show that it would make improvements to have that done early. And so we've made the commitment to fund that with the regional dollars and get that implemented soon. And when I mean soon, it's November of 2022. Construction should be starting on that. So, next slide. Okay, I'll hand it over to Lauren.
So we've covered a lot of information today, and what we want to leave you with is that we're really proud of the long-standing relationship that we have with the city and with Caltrans and working together to achieve great things. And our commitment to public participation is no different. You heard much about how we engage the public through our regulatory processes, the design review teams, and the work that we did with the community before we put pen to paper for the lane and the train strategy. So our public engagement did not stop there. For over a decade, we've successfully worked with communities throughout the corridor to build and strengthen relationships. So beyond traditional outreach, we hold regular stakeholder meetings. We've had town halls. We're celebrating milestone events. Let me go back here. And ongoing construction information, including bi-weekly emails, as well as an annual overview brochure that is mailed out U.S. Postal Service to every household in the project area in both English and Spanish. And then as you can see on this slide, we have a website, a hotline phone number. You see it on the freeway when you're driving, and it's also included in our construction overview brochure. So we ask as we continue to move forward in the coming months, we ask as we continue to move forward if you have questions about the project or if you want us to meet with any stakeholders in your communities, that you let us know. And then in the coming months, our team is going to be focused on the Olive Mill and San Ysidro roundabouts, as well as the Montecito early works. So we'll be doing a lot of stakeholder engagement around those projects. And so you'll be invited to an upcoming town hall meeting with the Coast Village Association in October. So that's right before we anticipate to start construction on Olive Mill. We are working with the city on a groundbreaking for the Olive Mill roundabout, so that should be a fun event that we'll have in November. And lastly, we are really excited to have the California Transportation Commission come to town October 12th and 13th. So this is a 13-member body commission that is responsible for funding a lot of the projects that we love, both with the highway, the active transportation projects that you see for bike and ped improvements. They are the funding agencies. So we are working with the city to make them feel welcomed here. We're excited. Mayor Rouse will be coming to give welcoming remarks to the commission, and we'll have a reception. So we'll make sure that you know all the fun events that we'll have, and to really showcase all the good and important work that we're doing here in Santa Barbara together. So with that, it concludes our formal presentation. Thank you, Mayor Rouse, for the invitation for being here. Thank you, council members, for hearing this update. If you have any questions, we are happy to entertain them now.
All right, well, thank you, because this is information that's really valuable. The updates are great. I know you're going to be talking to CVR. Also, I know our downtown organization, the Chamber, would probably also love to either be a part of that or maybe a separate presentation, because it's really, we've been talking about this stuff for a lot of years. Questions from the council. Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse. Just one quick question. Thank you so much. A lot of information here, and I really, really appreciate it. I just have a question about safety. Some of the construction's on a pretty narrow corridor, and I know I've heard from a lot of constituents, and I think it was even in the paper, this idea that there were a lot of accidents, and that may not be true. I'm just wondering if you can give us a sense of how you guys address and plan for safety issues in construction. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, I'll field that. Thank you for the question. Safety is our number one priority, right? We all hear that every single day. But on the corridor, the reality is that it's so confined that we have to lower speeds down, right? We have to lower speeds down to be able to navigate people through the different construction work zones. And so what people, I think, are seeing, and correct me if you think differently, but it's changed from what the normal freeway looks like, right? People are used to being able to drive 70, 75 miles an hour through the freeway without any problem. But in construction, when we put down a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, we mean that, because the engineers have determined that's the only way they can fit those construction zones in this narrow of a corridor. And so they have to put the K-rail down to keep the construction workers and the traveling public safe. And so when we say 55, we mean it. And I could use help in getting that message out. And so when you hear, folks saying, "Oh, this is not a safe freeway," it's a 55-mile-an-hour design for a very important reason, and we could use help relaying that message out to the community to obey those signs and listen and slow down when you're going through the freeway, because it is safe. It is a safe design at 55 to drive through there. And we have statistics. We partner with the CHP, right, to be able to look at what's going on. We don't give up on monitoring the freeway while we're in construction for collisions. And what we're seeing is that there's not an uptick in collisions during construction, right? There's more of a focus and a highlight on it because everybody's in traffic, or everybody's seeing the work that's going on every day, and the K-rail is up there. But we are not seeing that reflected in the statistics when we partner with CHP and look into that. But I reiterate, 55 miles an hour is the most important thing we can do to get through the corridor and get home safe.
I would also like to add, Councilmember, is that we do have a first responders stakeholder group. So we regularly meet with fire, police, sheriff, and all the first responders in this corridor to keep everyone apprised of what to expect in construction, what's upcoming, and to make sure that we're not siloed as agencies so we can be responsive and work together. So our construction team is there too, Granite Construction. So we are committed to work together to address safety issues.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful, and I will most certainly be telling everyone to slow down. I think that's good advice, always. One final quick question. To the extent anyone has questions, constituents have questions, whether it's about safety or anything else, should I direct them to your website and that phone number? Is that the best place?
Yes, and people can sign up for biweekly construction updates on that website. But yes, that hotline number is a great number, and then they can email us through the website.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Sneddon.
Thank you, Mayor Rouse, and thank you for this update. It's very welcome. And the first thing I want to say is it's such great news about the Cabrillo southbound on-ramp. So my first question that everyone will want to know is when we can expect that to actually be open. That's really welcome news. So that's my first question.
Mr. Luna?
So that segment is currently not funded, as we kind of indicated, and so it's really a funding issue. And so, the 4E segment will be delivered and through its permit process. And so as soon as we get funding, that can be prioritized and implemented with the rest of the Santa Barbara improvements. Unfortunately, it's not funded right now, but we're striving hard to get it funded and completed.
And the next funding cycle for that project would be?
So the next funding cycle, so there's a number of opportunities. We mentioned through the state, there's every 2 years. The Senate Bill 1 programs are in perpetuity, and so there's funding programs every 2 years. So the next funding cycle is currently underway. We're going to be applying by the end of this calendar year. And then there'll be, if that particular component isn't funded at the time, then there'll be another opportunity in 2 years.
Thank you. Ms. Nedden?
I do want to ask.
I misunderstood because I thought that was something early on that was part of the project. So that's not certain that that's going to happen?
There's 2 phases. There's the Los Patos Cabrillo roundabout, which yes. Okay, but the on-ramp.
So the on-ramp is part of the project. Let's just answer that. So it is part of the project, and it's part of the overall 4E segment that you're seeing up on the screen. So it is a critical part and a needed part of that overall design. That whole 4E segment is not funded right now. What we were saying previously was that Phase 1 is related to the roundabout. Maybe if there was confusion there, that's a separate parallel project that's being done on the local streets at the intersection of Los Patos and Cabrillo.
Thank you. So is there a range of the timing for when the Cabrillo southbound on-ramp will be reopened?
Again, it's related to if we got funding and it was funded as early as next year, that could be implemented as within let's say 2 to 3 years. If it's 2 more years, then up to 5 years with the next funding cycle. So.
And if it's not funded, what happens?
Every 2 years, we will continue to take swings at it and get it funded. But yeah, that is part of the funding application.
That's a really big, I mean, as you know, you must hear a lot about it. People really, really want that back. And so then I had another question about, I'll have 2 more questions. One is about the Olive Mill roundabout, and I know there were the designs before the Montecito debris flow, and then lessons learned from how fluid flows through that corridor, drainage basin, any new considerations in the design of that are as a result of lessons learned from Montecito debris flow?
So I will attempt to answer that. So the Montecito debris flow, as we're all aware, occurred in 2018. The design has not changed materially since that point in time. It did go, following the debris flow, I believe it did go through its Montecito and City Planning Commission processes. So I don't believe that, maybe Megan would know about that. She was involved in that. But I don't believe that was, that changed the design of that. There was some consideration about the interior retaining wall that supports the median island, but it's fairly low. And so I don't believe that affected any flood flows and caused any additional impacts.
So the freeway would still act as a drainage basin as it did in the debris flow?
Yeah, and looking at the maps under those those types of flows that were experienced, which are have been documented to exceed kind of any necessary design flow that you would design for, would be the water would flow through the freeway and across the freeway. So.
Okay. Okay. I thought that I understood that there were some changes to the drainage flow patterns through that corridor, but I can follow up on that, but I think it's an important point. And then when the construction starts on that roundabout, the impacts are going to be significant, I'm sure, to Coast Village Road. And I've had questions about what the plan is to sort of address what that congestion and through there, how that will be handled when the time comes.
Well, we're working with the community right now on that, and I think that it's a little we're working on staging and kind of how that construction is going to be flowing through. But we do have our commitments to the community on that, and so that's going to be stuff that we're working with Coast Village Association and so forth that we'll be rolling out during the town hall meeting coming up. And I don't know if there's anything Joe wants to share.
No, just the staging, you know, there will be ramp closures, right? You can't build the roundabout without closing some of those ramps to build the actual intersection. And so flagging through the intersection, you should expect to see flagging, some lane closures periodically through there, but some ramp closures too as we construct that roundabout. So there will be local and temporary detours that are a part of that. But you know, we've committed to in the past and continue to commit to flagging those intersections that need it to address those operational issues through there.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to ask very specifically, I'd really like to participate in the public outreach and the community meetings that are centered around Coast Village Road and with the association. So thank you for that offer of being involved. And I'll just, one more comment, just really happy to hear that you're talking about how to address range anxiety. I think it's very real, particularly if you're traveling with children or families. And I think that's probably the biggest impediment to fully electrifying for a lot of people. So I was just really happy to hear that. And thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sneddon, I just want to go back to with that funding side to remind the really important piece and component to us, and what's really strong here locally is that we have a transportation tax measure, Measure A, and that is funding us to get to be shovel ready, and that is making us more attractive for funding applications, but we're not done yet. So this timeline on this slide shows where we're at in the process and where we need to get to be shovel ready for construction. And so that is our current estimated timeline, where we want to be with our permits, with our coastal development permits, and as we approach these funding applications.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Friedman.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Very informative. Just a couple of questions, and just to clarify the current conditions, I didn't see it on here, but the exit, that kind of the official, unofficial exit at Los Patos going southbound, that's going to be closed permanently once this is all done, correct?
Yes, that's correct. It's currently, as you know, 12 feet 4 inches, so well under a standard. So.
And then most of my questions were answered, but I had one on currently the issue with the train. I know that in 2020 or so that it was halted for the commuter time, and in the staff report we had, it said it hasn't reached the capacity yet. But is there discussions, and what is the update on getting the train up and running for the commuter times to try to alleviate some of the traffic that we anticipate with the construction?
Yeah, so I'm going to welcome Aaron Bonfilio on our staff, our latest Director of Rail and Transit. Many of you may have worked with Scott Spalding in the past, so Aaron's here to help with that question.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor Rouse and members of the council. Aaron Bonfilio for Santa Barbara County Association of Government, newly hired Director of Rail and Transit. And prior to joining SBCAG, I was with the Ventura County Transportation Commission, one of the member agencies of Metrolink, the JPA, SCRA managed. And I can say that while LoSAN has rail expansion plans that do include adding service back to Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara stations, unfortunately, the early morning train at this time is not identified as it's in the near term. However, we are working with VCTC in Ventura County on some potential alternatives, including potentially a demonstration project with Metrolink. It's highly preliminary at this point, so I don't want to overstate the possibility, but you know, at this time, that's one of the options we're looking at in the near term to try and bring a project into the corridor sooner than later.
Okay, thanks. So it's not coming now, but we are trying to come up with alternatives, especially with the upcoming construction. Okay. And my final question, it's outside the kind of the scope, but it's the larger picture that from the beginning is I'm just interested in the current construction at Santa Claus Lane, but in particular the bike path that's going to be extended. So could you just give some information on that bike path and when it would expect it to be open and what it is? I think that's a very important connection for alternative transportation for those who want to bike down to Carpinteria from up here.
Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that, and thank you for the question. We have some really good news to share. We've given quite a few updates both to our board and made some real significant progress. Our current target is to have that started for construction in after Labor Day. And so it's right around the corner, even more imminent than the Olive Mill roundabout. So we have a number of these parallel projects that are going in, and you're right, Councilman Friedman, is that's an important connection between both the city of Carpinteria and the county. It's being coordinated closely with the adjacent freeway improvements, and we've been able to be efficient with that construction, such that it'll be about 7 to 8 months, and open by the spring of 2023. So we look forward to having a celebration event at that time to open that bikeway.
Well, so the bike path is 2023 spring?
When it would be open, yeah.
That's excellent news. My last question is a follow-up because it's a project I worked on at the county, was for many years at Santa Claus Lane, and there's a lot of residents from Santa Barbara that obviously go down to Santa Claus Lane, is there was always the work to try to get the dedicated crossing, the safe crossing there. Is that any part of the parallel projects, or is that something that's still being worked on outside of what's taking place there too, where you have the dedicated safe crossing and kind of funnel people in there rather than just going over the tracks right now?
Yes, that's also, and we're proud to say that was another project that SBK and Caltrans partnered with the county on to get funded in our first cycle. And so the county is currently making some great progress on that project. There's a number of improvements, including the important grade crossing across the UP tracks, some on-street parking. We're even trying to integrate some zero-emission vehicle parking in that along that corridor, and just coordinating right now because there's a lot of construction work going on in that area with the highway and the county's project. But that schedule for that project, it needs to be submitted for funding request through that original cycle of funding early next year by February, and then it likely to go to construction in the fall of 2023. That's what the county's been indicating. So.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When it comes to those roundabouts, the ones at Cabrillo and Patos and Olive Mill, are those, I don't know if you've done any kind of preliminary testing, but will they alleviate the rush hour blockage that happens there, or the types of traffic jams that occur during events and such, whether it's at the cemetery or those restaurants, or because as it is now, it gets pretty blocked up at those intersections. So will the roundabouts alleviate that?
Mayor Rouse, Council Member Oscar Gutierrez. It depends. It really depends on what the source of the congestion is. And with significant congestion on southbound Highway 101 that's backing up onto Coast Village Road, that backs up onto Cabrillo, those roundabouts aren't going to solve the bigger picture problem. But when there's localized congestion and there's the congestion is just being caused by the intersection itself, the roundabout will completely alleviate that.
So like the daily congestion that happens in the mornings and around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, will that be alleviated by these roundabouts?
That won't be alleviated until the project as a whole is implemented. It's really the extra lane on the mainline freeway that's going to free everything up. And the congestion that happens on Coast Village Road, you know, people are using Coast Village Road because they're trying to avoid the congestion on Highway 101. So once Highway 101 becomes more free-flowing again, then people will likely be getting off of Coast Village Road and back onto Highway 101. So it's the combination of the projects that's really going to provide the congestion relief.
Okay. And obviously, during the construction, it's going to be pretty hairy to get through there.
It's going to be impactful, no way around that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, very good. And I just have one question about, I think it's for Mr. Luna. Going back to slide 19, I was a little confused because there's some things that say they're funded, but then there's things that aren't funded. So I'm thinking about particularly the problematic Union Pacific Railroad Bridge. And that seems to be, might be a fly in the ointment for our project there in terms of the funding. Is that also going to be pursued in that next funding cycle as well for the entirety of that project?
Yes, it's been part of our previous applications, the railroad undercrossing. We did add, so it does include basically the replacement of the railroad undercrossing at Cabrillo Boulevard and all the improvements underneath there to connect to both the freeway improvements and down to the Los Patos Cabrillo roundabout, all that. Plus, in addition, the Los Patos, as Councilman Friedman was indicating, we're removing that the current southbound off-ramp that doesn't meet the vertical clearance, but then the railroad has asked that that entire bridge be removed, and so that's part of the scope as well. So in that entirety, that's the project that's been part of the applications and will continue to be applied for.
And what will Union Pacific's participation be in that financially?
They currently have not participated or agreed to participate in that, which is fairly typical.
All right, very good. All right, well, thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. The other part of this item is Mr. Bailey's, is that correct?
Mayor Rouse, that's only if council had questions specific to the local project. We have those graphics available, but the main item is just the
Okay, very
SBK
good.
presentation.
I do have a speaker. Do I have any speakers online as well? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and have Mr. Wentz come forward. He's got a speaker slip in, please.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Scott Wins representing Cars for Basic. It's difficult to respond to a almost hour-long presentation by staff in 3 minutes. Our traffic engineer, who has over 25 years of experience building highways, bridges, and freeways in the state of California, is on a family emergency and is on the East Coast and couldn't be here. Let's take number one, Olive Mill Roundabout. Absolutely 100% not needed. It was shoved down the throats of the people of Coast Village Road by Caltrans as a environmental impact mitigation. The issue of the roundabout and the water flow down there, you're putting a cement plug in the middle of a location that will divert water into places like the Montecito Inn. Caltrans has stated specifically they're taking out the sound walls on that side of the freeway to allow the flow, yet you're going to put a cement plug in the middle of the intersection. That roundabout will also interfere with the price development over on the other side because MTD is going to be putting a on and off ramp, not on and off ramp, but a passenger loading and offloading. Okay, let's go to 4E staff comment, Los Patos roundabout. And this was demanded, not asked for, but demanded by Rob Dayton and Helene Schneider as part of a mitigation for a transportation problem that does not exist 99% of the time down there. With the widening of the bridge, going under the railroad track, you will eliminate most of those issues. Now you have another problem on your hands. The state of California just said, by the way, if you're going to allow e-bikes on roads, you're going to have to also allow e-pedicabs on the roads. Now, I'll guarantee you, you start putting people down there on holidays and so forth with e-bikes and with pedicabs going around that roundabout, you're in for a major problem. Let's see. The city of Santa Barbara has experienced with the Carpinteria-Milpas roundabout 2 problems. Number one, an oblong roundabout increases speed. That's number one. Number two, the pedestrian and bicycle accidents increased. Number three, and all due respect to Mr. Bailey because I have a great deal of respect for him, the accident rate at Carpinteria Street and Milpas has gone up initially 400% and settled down to approximately 300% over the old intersection. You can understand why we get upset and angry about the City of Santa Barbara transportation plans. Multimodal, you had Jerry DeWitt, former city councilman.
We need you to wrap up, please.
Sorry. State on the radio just last week, the multimodal paths are not liked by the individuals, are not being used by them, and interfere with bicycle traffic. And I wish you'd give me more time because we've been involved with this for 15 years.
Thank you. All right, so there's no action item here. Are there any further comments or questions from council? Ms. Gutierrez.
Mr. Bailey, when looking into the roundabout, Los Patos roundabout, did the city or Caltrans do a sort of like a simulation to see the traffic flow? And can you give us some reporting on that?
Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Alejandro Gutierrez. Yes, that's a very preliminary exercise when exploring the option of considering a roundabout or a traffic signal. It's looking at the traffic volume projections in the future and making sure you build enough capacity into the project that it'll function well. In this case, we know that a single lane roundabout will work well, which is good news because a single lane roundabout is the safest kinds of roundabout. And as well, with the roundabout, it'll also provide good connectivity to the pathways that adjoin the roundabout on either side. There's the beachway next to the bird refuge. There's the connection that goes over to Butterfly Beach. And then there's also the future connection that's going to go under the new rail bridge through the interchange and up to Coast Village Road. So yes, that was all studied. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Well, I'd like to thank you guys for the presentation, and with Director Kern's indulgence, I'd like to do this on a reasonably regular basis, as this is really critical and important to our projects on the surface here in Santa Barbara, and of course, what we do on Sunday afternoons as opposed to standing in line to go anywhere. So, thank you so much. Appreciate that. Madam Administrator, should we be taking a translator break before the next item?
Mayor Rouse, it's really up to you. We usually go at least 20 more minutes before we take a break, but if council would like to take a quick break, that's just fine.
All right, we'll just keep, we just got it divided here. Let's go ahead and take the presentation then, and then we can either break for questions or we can do our public comment. I'm sorry? Yes, go ahead and please read the item there, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, this is item 8, Economic Development Plan Annual Update.
All right, Mr. Harris.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council, members of the public. I'm Jason Harris, the city's Economic Development Manager, providing the staff presentation today. This is an update to the Economic Development Plan that has just finished its first milestone year of completion. For context, I would like to quickly review why economic development is an important function of local government. We have an infographic on the slide, and what it illustrates is how economic development works to strengthen and diversify the local economy. Starting on the left on the screen, economic developers. We are connecting businesses with investors, with resources and capital, helping businesses with regulatory issues and problem solving, and marketing the community is a great place to invest and do business. That is in an effort to help businesses thrive and provide local tax revenue, create jobs that employ community residents, and bring daytime workers into a community to patronize local businesses. And those businesses also help create a stronger social fabric by supporting the community and being part of the community culture. And the end result of that is businesses produce tax revenue in addition to jobs, and these fund critical services in the community and many assets that maintain our quality of life, such as public safety, roads, infrastructure, libraries, public services, parks, and public spaces. The next two slides really are a depiction of our partners. This slide is really an intent to represent our existing partners that we've been strengthening relationships through the pandemic in the first year of the Economic Development Plan. These organizations really are representative of a larger ecosystem of organizations that are assisting and promoting local businesses in the local economy. It's also important to recognize the city has only one staff person dedicated to implementing the Economic Development Plan and managing the Economic Development Program, so it's really critical that we are leveraging the efforts of our partner organizations to utilize their expertise and amplify our collective work efforts and missions. This slide is really representative of organizations and new partnerships that have emerged or are developing here again in the first year of the Economic Development Plan. We're building these partnerships to help attract businesses and investment, help assist and support businesses in key industries, as well as revitalize downtown and strengthen our commercial districts. On a side note, as you all may recall, I was reporting to the city administrator, and in this past year, the position, Economic Development Manager positions, transferred to the Community Development Department to work in synergy and collaboration with community development staff on business assistance through the business liaison function, on the State Street Master Plan with that team, as well as on the development land process improvements and even homeless services, where we're all integrated working to improve the community. So to recap in context, the Economic Development Mission is part of the Economic Development Plan that Council adopted last June of 2021. The Council adopted a 3-year plan with a guiding mission that strengthens the city's economy and enhances downtown vibrancy while ensuring social equity and environmental protection, as well as celebrating the city's historic character, cultural resources, and arts. This really drives the Economic Development Plan and the program of economic development. We'll not take you through all of the detail, but this is a depiction of the economic development strategies. There's 3 core foundational strategies. The basics of supporting local businesses and commercial districts. On the left hand, the middle column is cultivating business-friendly city government strategy and its supporting objectives, and then the right-hand side is revitalizing downtown as a regional hub, retail, entertainment, art, culture, higher education, and business. As you can see, there's supporting objectives, goals under each of these strategies are being pursued, and underlying those objectives are a series of actions, 24 actions to be implemented over the 3-year plan. And over the next few slides, I'll be giving an update to the implementation of those actions and status. And I will also end the presentation with an overview of the Economic Development Program, as well as the upcoming actions for the year forward and the work plan for the American Rescue Plan funds that Council committed. So quickly, I'll walk you through the Strategy 1 actions. So as you can see here, they're again tied on the left-hand side to objectives, business training, supporting commercial districts and key industries, and developing the business retention, expansion, and traction initiatives. So during this past year, staff under the Economic Development Program, we've been able to establish and create a security response training for businesses and business owners, as well as a public safety and service resource directory. This is also an ongoing function because we want to continue to provide those trainings and update that service directory. We were effectively finding many businesses that did not know who to call. Everyone knows 911, but 911 is only really for, emergency police services, and there's a range of social services that are available in the community for a variety of instances, and this is the intent to support businesses in that context. There was also ongoing continued effort on ensuring that business assistance information, business assistance services were provided in Spanish to ensure that all members of the community had equal access. The council adopted a enabling ordinance for the formation of community benefit improvement districts, as well as established the first community benefit improvement district in the city for Coast Village. This has an ongoing administrative responsibility. That'll be highlighted later in the economic development plan update, as well as the catch-all of developing business attraction content. Business expansion and attraction requires information, demographic information, real estate information, and as I referenced on the earlier slides, a number of organizations are involved in this. So ongoing efforts, ongoing information need to be updated and provided. So these 4 actions were implemented. We have a series of actions that are in process, as highlighted on this slide. We're continuing to focus on supporting key industries in the city, in specifics to the commercial fishery industry. We are constantly working to retain businesses and conducting business visitations. And we've created, expansion of outdoor business activities, parklet citywide. It's a temporary measure as a part of the economic recovery ordinance, but there is an evaluation of the policy considerations of potentially continuing that forward. There's several actions that are pending that will be pursued in the upcoming 2 years of the plan. So under strategy 2, this strategy is, as we reference, is cultivating a business-friendly city government. We need to ensure that we have a perception that we are open for business, that we welcome investment, and that we're facilitating that investment in our community. The first action that was implemented was also ensuring social equity and opportunity for micro enterprises throughout the city with an adoption of the sidewalk vending ordinance. We have ongoing actions that are in process of continued providing business assistance to both projects as well as businesses looking to make investment, tenant improvements, land development. But there's also an outreach to gather feedback to our processes to inform ongoing change. The council land development team is an integral part of this effort. We're positioning to establish, and you'll see that in the upcoming work efforts, a Shop Local campaign. This is ultimately geared to our residents to educate, highlight the importance of shopping locally, keeping our money locally as much as possible, really reducing the amount of online sales or purchase outside the community. This in turn has all associated benefits of keeping the bulk of monies and revenues in our community. And then communication, this is really a hallmark of work efforts coming forward. Really excited to have the new city website established that will create a brand that we can work off of. And one of the key efforts here is a business quarterly newsletter and weekly email blast to inform the businesses about resources and grants and assistance. So this will be ongoing efforts as well. And then under the third strategy, really strengthening downtown as a regional hub. We have implemented a number of actions as one would expect. State Street is prominent in that, the establishment of an advisory committee, developing the RFP, selecting the master plan, and ultimately, not a defined action, but ultimately kicking off the master plan. So that is well underway. We're also working with academic institutions. So we're fortunate to have Westmont College making a substantive investment. So we're working with them as they envision what those new facilities will be in downtown, integrating Westmont and their nursing program into our approach to responding to homelessness, as well as Antioch is present, and we're engaging with them, finding internships for their students and other programmatic opportunities. And then constantly looking for additional academic partners. It's an open secret. California State Channel Islands is interested in expanding into downtown and been working with their representative to evaluate properties. And then with our other adjacent higher education institutions, the community college and University of California, looking for partnerships, ultimately trying to bring them into downtown, kind of be a part of the mix is really the goal there. And then constantly ongoing is looking to diversify the mix of business activity in downtown. Unique retail, entertainment uses, experiential activities, as we all know, is kind of the newer form of retail and experience. And we've had some great success. Crafters Library, kind of a crafting maker shop, Aloha Family Fun Center, and the finalizations of their permitting for roller skating laser tags, and even the most unique of all business, an axe throwing company recently opened. As you'll see on process actions, housing projects are being assisted and will ongoing. It's a very lengthy process for design review, but we're working with those projects, looking to, again, identify where there's potential opportunities for process improvement. We're evaluating, identifying, working through means and methods to incorporate new art and cultural events in downtown, again, to diversify the activity, fill in the shoulder seasons. This will be ongoing as we both identify, but then facilitate, and then ongoing monitoring. Obviously, I referenced the development of State Street Master Plan. And then we have a number of pending projects. Public-private infill housing is positioned for policy pursuit, as well as aid and support our co-worker spaces, which we have a number around the downtown. Those incubate and house many startup businesses that we want to interact with and help grow. Growing local business is the best form of job creation in the community. And then promotion of heritage tourism is also on the future work plans. So there was additional economic development program activities and accomplishments that were not identified in the economic development plan that were produced and implemented in this past year. The most notable was authorization of the Economic Recovery and Extension and Transition Ordinance. This really carried forward the pandemic emergency responses for another year and a half. That's in place till the end of next year. Really critical to support our businesses kind of transition and strengthen from the impacts of the pandemic. As I referenced, commercial fishermen, council financially supported and partnering with them on a strategic plan, as well as property owner and business owner support. Outside of the businesses highlighted, there was a number of other projects assisted throughout the city, not just in downtown. And then some really exciting new economic development partnerships. There's some tech companies that have formed the Silicon Riviera really to attract technology companies and really build the workforce of technology. They all have probably the most constant common denominator is workforce, is highly trained and skilled workforce is critical to support the technology industries, and this spans a number of business classifications. But Santa Barbara has a really abundance of companies in this domain. And then REACH is a newer organization. They're San Luis Obispo based, really an output to respond to Diablo Canyon transitioning and closing, but they are broadening and working into Santa Barbara County, and so they're doing a comprehensive economic development strategy for San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara counties collectively. So a regional economic development plan, very exciting. So I'm representing the city's interest in that effort and partnering with that organization. So for year 2, the next few slides will really highlight the work plans position to be implemented in year 2. So as I highlighted earlier, so I'll move quickly, but a Shop Local campaign, really supporting and promoting our local businesses as well as our commercial districts. Again, this is geared as much to our local residents as well as to our businesses, and so we'll be looking to develop some graphics and communications and working with our media partners. We'll be launching the communication initiatives, so we have a great city newsletter. So one could envision the title of that changing to Business News and Brief or some similar business-oriented newsletter as well as e-blast. And so you'll see less business-related content in the City News and Brief as this new communication tool comes online. And then constant land development outreach. This is a photo of myself and my colleagues from Community Development development, meeting with the American Institutes of Architects, speaking about upcoming initiatives and process improvements. And our intent is to spread those efforts wide and address a number of business and community groups with our efforts, as well as to seek feedback and input. So in year 2, as I referenced, evaluation of a potential permanent parklet program, understanding the policy implications of that outside of the downtown State Street corridor. We'll be evaluating that and seeking council's feedback. We'll also be working, as I referenced, with co-workspaces and startup firms, helping to grow the tech industry, and again, looking for ways to diversify our local economy. And then, it's great to see, again, that adoption of the local enabling ordinance for community benefit improvement districts and the success of the Coast Village has spurred momentum and action with the interest to form a downtown community benefit improvement district. And so I'll be helping facilitate the efforts to form such a district here in downtown. And then just lastly, rounding out, as highlighted, to facilitation of special events and cultural programs, again, bringing a diversity of experience and activities, things that aren't necessarily commerce-driven, free events, educational events, fun activities for a wide assortment of ages and backgrounds in our community. It's still key to focus on supporting housing. Housing is ultimately the key to success for a revitalized State Street, but it is a long enduring effort. We do know that adaptive reuse of commercial spaces is also critical, as we have a 3.5 million square feet of commercial space in downtown, more retail than what our resident population can really support. And so reusing that space in different forms is really critical. So both assisting projects and looking to be informed of how we can facilitate both through policy and practice. Development of State Street Master Plan, obviously high priority, as well as supporting our public works staff and organizations in our State Street operations, bringing it back to a clean and safe condition that our community expects. As I've referenced, and you saw kind of throughout the slide, there were certain actions that, even though they were implemented, they have ongoing programmatic and administrative responsibilities. And so this slide really represents that. As the Economic Development Plan is implemented, it is effectively creating an economic development program that will carry forward. And again, following the pillars of our strategy, supporting business and commercial districts, cultivating business-friendly city government, revitalizing downtown, those actions will have ongoing importance as we continue to implement those strategies. And then just finally, the American Rescue Plan Act, Council was gracious for a $50,000 commitment towards economic development. We would be looking to bring on an intern to assist, as well as fund either the collateral materials or design for a SHAP Local campaign and commercial district promotion. And I'll be working with a number of colleagues throughout the organization to pursue this exciting promotional effort. And with that, my contact information is available, so any and all, please feel free to reach out and utilize me for a point of reference and assistance. And with that, I'm happy to have any questions and feedback from the council. Thank you.
Okay, questions from council. Mr. Friedman.
Thank you. I just have one question, I guess, on an issue. Is you mentioned in terms of housing is the major issue, because we can't afford our current workers or need to come live here. And so you mentioned the distinction between recruitment of new businesses versus retaining and expanding. How does that get implemented in the work plan? And then has there been any high-level discussions about just different strategies that we could use for employer-sponsored type of housing, or other means that we could use the existing resources on existing housing in addition to trying to build new housing?
Certainly. Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Friedman, two-part question. First part in the distinction between business attraction and really business retention and growth. I believe our greatest success is growing our local industries and supporting our local industries. We'll have a greater opportunity to support those businesses. It's less of a costly endeavor for a company to pick up and completely relocate. That being said, it is not unfathomable we have a high quality of life. Many executives choose to live here or make this community their home. And so it's important that we also have a platform of information available. And as I referenced on those slides, I didn't go into the detail, but we're now represented on the state governor's GoBiz site, have a community profile. All our data of demographics and real estate is there. The REACH website that I referenced, the Central Coast, we have a similar community profile, and you could search available real estate. So that business attraction outward facing for potential investors or businesses that are looking for a potential Central Coast or a West Coast expansion, we need to make ourselves available for that and using those portals. But it's equally, in my opinion, probably a higher priority to support our local businesses and that local job creation. So that's a broad generalization response to the first part of your question. The second part of housing and supporting employees, workforce housing. Obviously, we're pursuing housing from a policy standpoint, from a development. We have a number of community partners supporting housing and residents. Is there additional effort within that context of programmatic housing support that could be pursued? It could be, and I think you've actually mentioned the idea of maybe employer contributed funding that could potentially support, and is there partnerships to be made there? We know housing is extremely expensive and also limited, and so just finding housing can be a challenge. And so looking for all aspects, not explicitly on just the development of housing, we should be multi-pronged in our efforts.
Thank you, and I appreciate that you're looking at a multi-pronged approach to not only creation of new housing, but how we can get into existing housing resources with the business in partnerships that might not be available now, but that could actually help address some of the challenges that we're facing in exploring them. So I look forward to continuing those conversations.
Ms. Bjork, you had a comment?
Yeah, Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Friedman, as you have seen, we've increased our conversations about housing and housing affordability from beyond just very low income and low income housing affordability to all ranges of housing affordability. And we are, as you know, currently working on a pilot project with the Housing Authority on workforce housing and continue to expand and improve our policies to be more inclusive of all levels of restrictions on housing such that we can continue to have our local workers work and live here.
Ms. Harmon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much, Mr. Harris, for this. I really appreciate it. Just two questions. And the first, I apologize, you may have touched on this and I missed it. But on the commercial fishermen partnership, I know that they had been working with our council liaisons on finding a space. And I think, if I remember correctly, you were going to work closely with them as well. I guess maybe what I'm just asking is if you have an update with regard to finding them a space, and if there are ways that the city and we could further partner with them to make that dream a reality.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harmon, update on the commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara. I actually just spoke with Michael Nelson this week. I've put them in contact and expand their horizons of opportunities. They actually have kind of a multi-tiered effort. So yes, they're in pursuit of land and in pursuit of funds to build infrastructure, processing facilities, storage facilities for the commercial fishermen fleet and operations that exist here. Their approach is sound in the context that they have been pursuing the creation, development of a strategic plan in order to be qualified for federal and state assistance. The Economic Development Administration will not fund jurisdictions or organizations without an economic development plan, and so that's one of the reasons why REACH is developing that by-county comprehensive economic development plan to make the counties positioned to pursue federal and state funds. So the commercial fishermen are on that track, but as they go through that, they're also working with a number of consultants and other economic development agencies to inform their prospects. And so just in the most recent conversations I've had with commercial fishermen, we've highlighted the opportunity to think broadly. So as much as they have a foothold, maybe a better stated, a toehold in the waterfront today for their operations that they really need to expand, we've also highlighted to kind of broaden their perspective to really look at the Central Coast. There is a cost for transportation as they leave the immediate area, but there could be some opportunities. And so we're really casting the net wide to ultimately support the industry. Regionalism is kind of a newer wave and interest right now that's happening both state and in the world as well as the federal level. And there could be some outcomes of either the investment in solar or sustainable energy, the offshore wind farms, for instance, who, at least in the San Luis Obispo area where those leases are being conceptualized, that those commercial fishermen in that area are being compensated for the potential impact. And so is there something farther afield for the Santa Barbara commercial fishermen potentially to either emulate that approach and or take advantage? Obviously, the petrochemical industry of transportation, refinery, and production, there could be community benefit requirements that come out of any settlements or opportunities there. So just to give a kind of a synopsis and summary, they're still focused on creating an economic development strategy that will position them for grant funding and philanthropic funding, but they're also, I think, now being exposed to the greater kind of network of organizations involved in this industry of government and support of business, are also expanding their horizon to think a little more broadly from a kind of a coastal regional area. And they've been a part of several multi-regional proposals that they haven't been awarded, but they're in the mix. So they're really being thoughtful in their efforts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that and certainly agree with regard to expanded opportunities. I know with the leases off of Morro Bay, we've done a lot of work at the Coastal Commission level related to that and working with local fishermen there. So I've spoken to the commercial fishermen, offering myself as a resource, particularly with regard to that as well, but putting that to you. If there's ever a nexus there, I'm happy to help liaise. And I just briefly do want to say I really appreciate that you're thinking about other potential avenues for economic development other than, certainly we are all very, very focused on our retail and our retail downtown. I am focused on our retail downtown in particular and our restaurants and those vacant spaces, but I really, really appreciate that you're broadening what we think of when we think of economic development. Commercial fishermen is certainly one avenue, but I really like that and would like to see more of that. And to that end, my second and final question, I know that we have this Vision 2030, I think that's what we're calling it, and I was hoping you could speak to what your role might be as our economic development manager in thinking about new revenue streams for us as a city and how sort of your work could, or I guess whether it does fit into that process. Thank you.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Harmon, as the city embarks on really an intensive evaluation, both of our operations, looking for efficiencies, we're also expanding our perspectives of additional revenue streams. So I think best practice will be evaluating kind of comprehensively where all the tools and opportunities are, but then are there also industry partnerships and other maybe more innovative means that we look at creating revenues? The scope is limited, though, unfortunately, right, of taxation restrictions and the resources and tools that the city has. So I'll be a part and we'll be supporting, but we will have to kind of keep our expectations managed that there is a limited pool of opportunity there.
And Mayor Rouse, Councilmember Hardman, one of the things that we know from experience is as a tourist-based economy, we are very subject to volatility in our revenues. And so the work that Mr. Harris is doing to diversify our economic resources is also helpful in providing stability, even though it may not address additional revenues immediately.
Thank you.
All right, if there are no further questions, we have one public speaker to this item. I'll call up Robin Elander, please, from the downtown Santa Barbara.
Hello, great to see you all, Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Robin Elander, and I serve as the Executive Director for Downtown Organization of Santa Barbara, and I have had the privilege to work on many of these different projects that Jason has mentioned in the Economic Development Plan. Congratulations on your work, and thank you so much to the city for investing in this position. We know that it's only been here, Jason's only been here for several years, and the work that he and the team in the Community Development Department has done has been significant. I wanted to speak today particularly to share the significant strides that Mr. Harris and his leadership, as well as the commitment of energy that the city council and staff have made, particularly downtown for our community. The complementary work of the city's ad hoc committee on interim operations of State Street, as well as the recent investment of significant energy and time in the housing element, and now in the downtown master plan planning process, will really aid to the economic development work that our community is starting to really see. We are starting to see much more interest and investment in our downtown with new businesses that have opened recently in the past several years, properties purchased, as well as many to come. In part due to these efforts and the energies as part of this economic development plan discussed today. I look forward to keeping the momentum going and continuing on all of these efforts. We, with Downtown Santa Barbara, will be kicking off some new programming in our vacant or not as populated blocks downtown. That has been facilitated in part by our economic development manager, so we appreciate that. And while he's listening and getting up to speed today, I'm excited to share that we've recently hired a new director of downtown strategic initiatives who will be able to help and add energy, significant energy to the economic development efforts in downtown. His name is Daniel Ramirez, sitting right back here, and he just joined us this week, and you'll start to hear from him more soon. So thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Well, there's no action on this particular item. And with that, thank you, Mr. Harris, Mr. Isaacson, appreciate that. And we will go to council committee assignment reports. And that would be Mr. Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was able to attend the rental mediation program meeting last week, and they honored a previous mediator, and it was just great to be able to honor Andrea, because she's done a lot of great work over the decades, and she's a very impressive person. And I also just want to give my respects to the Baptista family who lost one of their brothers, Robert, and he was a great guy. He was a contractor, and he worked really hard, but he had some serious mental and emotional issues, and I just wish that he could have spoke up about them more and seeked help, and hope that his memory serves to all of us that, you know, if we are feeling down and alone, that all you have to do is reach out and talk to somebody. And yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Mr. Friedman.
Thank you. I attended the Central Coast Water Authority monthly meeting, and then on August 12th, attended the California Coastal Commission. My colleague, Councilman Harmon, was there, but as Commissioner Harmon. But it was a very productive discussion with the local government working group that is comprised of the Coastal Commission staff and a couple of coastal commissioners, and then representatives from the California State Association of Counties and the League of Cities. And I was one of the representatives from the League of Cities on this, and it's a monthly working group that we have to try to address and build relationships with the Coastal Commission so we can, as a state, have, improve our statewide response to local coastal planning and protection of the coast, and then at the same time have local flexibility. And so there was a workshop that we had all morning on the 12th to go over these issues, and the County of Santa Barbara presented their process, and the City of Morro Bay. There were some successes and challenges, and we look forward to the discussions to go forward out of that, but it was a very productive meeting. And then also attended the memorial for Owen Bailey, who recently passed away, and this was a memorial for him. He's the executive director of the Environmental Defense Center, and it was very well attended and was a great celebration of Owen's life. And so just want to express condolences to the Bailey family and to the greater community, environmental community here that Owen serves so proudly and so well. Thank you.
All right, very good. And so Friday, I attended there was a Coastal Village Road ad hoc meeting for the folks along Coastal Village Road, and it was moderated by our own Brian Bossy and some of the public works staff, along with Director Maurer. Well attended, very spirited conversation about parking versus parklets. So they have a dialogue that's established, and we'll be, I'm sure, hearing about more of that very, very soon. And on Saturday, I went to the Housing Authority's school supply giveaway, backpacks for all these kids, and then they had apparently 900 kids attend. We had a lot of service providers there, but it was a big community event on Saturday. And Mrs. Gutierrez, you remembered something. What
I
was your-
remembered something when you were talking about back to school. On Saturday, Councilmember Oscar Gutierrez and we went separately, but we were both there at the Ortega Park School Supply event. It was very successful. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, it's just, I don't know about you, but I, as a kid, I never went to anything like that. So I'm kind of always jealous of what's being offered to the kids nowadays. So I hope they appreciate it.
All right, very good. And with that, I believe we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.